So at the beginning of Mission St. Louis, when we first got off the ground, we focused on a certain neighborhood. And the reason why we focused on a certain neighborhood was because there was a school that let us in their doors, Adams Elementary School. And we spent a lot of time engaged in and working with Adams. And it didn't take very long of working with students and faculty and staff that we began to get to know who was in the neighborhood. There was one house, there was a ton of activity, it was alive, and that was the Banks family. It's the first time that I ever met Darnell Cooper. And Darnell was one of those guys that he gave you that look. Hey, I don't know who you are, but I don't want anything to do with you. He was a 15-year-old sophomore in high school, a great football player. One of the things that we began to do was we threw this huge block party, and then we would have some of the most epic throwdowns on the basketball court that you could ever imagine. Darnell was always on the outside of the circle. He was always very intrigued about what was going on, but he wasn't really sure what was happening, what was taking place, and if it were safe or not. And slowly, I got to know Darnell through that time. And I began to realize that Darnell was a leader. Once you began to crack him open, you began to see how well he loved people, how genuine he was about wanting to spend time to ask questions, and this relationship began to be birthed because he was willing to take a leap of courage to get to know an outsider like me.
What makes Darnell special is that he makes you special. Where we come from, you can't really show vulnerability. But Darnell, just to know him, you would see that he thinks differently.
Darnell is passionate about true leadership. I want to say he really wants things to be done the right way and for the right people. It doesn't matter the task, he's willing to take it.
It was really Darnell that helped shape what Mission St. Louis was to become. One of the things that we saw our community crying out for was the need for engagement, specifically around that high schooler, that 20-year-old, that young man. And so what began to happen, and Darnell was the beginning of this, is we began to grab about 10 of the young men, and we began meeting at my house every Thursday to talk about life. And it was because of that time where our staff began to go like, hey, there is talent and passion that exists inside this living room as we just began to meet weekly. That's what sent us on our mission to be able to engage in what we would call now workforce development. We began to see that relationship matters more than anything. Creating community, understanding and knowing one another, but then also we had to make sure that the talent that existed in our community met the opportunity that exists in our city. And so because of that time, because of Darnell's vulnerability and his courage, our organization was willing to say, hey, we need to step in. We need to be the bridge between the talent that exists in our community and the opportunity that exists in the metro area.
I think Mission St. Louis had a major impact on Darnell's life. It takes a village, and Mission St. Louis was definitely part of that village.
It's been a pleasure. You know, you all came into our life that day that you all walking down the street. We were able to open our hearts and receive what you had to say. My hope is that Darnell reached the goals that he's seeking. I'm looking forward to his next moves. I know they're going to be greater than where he is now.